So hello everyone, today we've got Luke on the channel and we're going to ask him a few questions about why he used JP and about his journey. So Luke, how did you start?
Morning, thanks for having me. So I've been investing in property for about 4 years now. My first investment was a commercial property actually in Castleford back in 2016. Our family business at the time previously occupied the unit, and one day I was speaking to the landlord of that property and he advised that he was due to move to France. So I asked him what his intentions were for the commercial unit that we occupied, and he said that he'd consider selling it. So I asked him what price that he'd like for the property, and he told me, and I thought that seems to be a good price. And I could benchmark that because 16 years earlier when we actually moved into the property, the value that he gave us in 2016 was actually about £45,000 less than the price that he wanted back in 2000. So I knew straight away that it was a good deal. So I joint ventured with a family member to buy that property, and we shared the equity 50-50, and we rented that property out for about 18 months or so. And then the tenant of that property at the time, once we'd sold our family business, actually wanted to move out. So then once they moved out, we got a couple of valuations done by an independent agent and listed the property, and within a couple of weeks of listing the property we actually sold it for double the amount that we bought it for 18 months later, having benefited from the rental income for that period of time. So it was at that point when I knew that there was money to be made in property, and that's when I really started taking an interest in it.
Yeah, so how did you go about meeting JP? Did you go to a few PIN meetings, or what made you actually go for a broker?
Yeah, so following the sale of the first property, the commercial property that I just mentioned, I then wanted to get into property more and more. So following the sale of that property, I used the profit that we'd made to reinvest in a few residential properties. So I bought several properties in and around the Leeds area that were largely distressed properties. I added value to them and sold them for a profit. And I did that for about 12 months or so, and that was the only real way at the time that I knew of making money through property. I thought that you just had to buy them, add value to them and selling them on. I wasn't aware of all the other different strategies. So one of my friends introduced me to a networking group based in Leeds. This was going back around 18 months or so ago now. So I'd had a bit of experience renting out a commercial property and then selling it, doing a few flip projects. But my mindset really changed when I went to the networking meeting. I started immersing myself in training, and that's where I met JP. So we met in March of 2019, and at the time I had one property in my limited company at that time, and I just renovated that property and I was looking to sell that property. But by going to the networking meetings and by speaking to people such as JP, my mindset changed away from wanting to make a quick profit on a deal to wanting to build long-term wealth and being able to build something for the future, a portfolio that will appreciate over time. So I spoke to JP and I was honest with him in terms of the money that I had and the equity that I had in property. And he said, given what you've got, you can build a decent portfolio of 6, 7, 8 properties maybe, over the next couple of years with the money that you've got available. So I listened to what he had to say, and it all made sense to me. Fortunately, I was going through a property training program at the time. So what he was telling me was aligning with what I was learning on the training program, and it all fell together quite nicely, really. So when I met JP, that was in March 2019. At the time, I was in the process of buying my own home as well. So that was a new build property which completed in June of 2019. So from June 2019, it took a few months for me to be added to the electoral register at my new address. So that was a bit of downtime, which was very frustrating to me because I was getting all of this knowledge from networking meetings, from training programs, from JP, but I wasn't able to implement it as such because I wasn't able to get the finance due to the fact that I wasn't on the electoral register for this period of 4 months, which eventually passed in October of 2019. So it was in October of 2019 last year when I decided that I really wanted to aggressively build out the portfolio. and I was able to do so by getting the finance using JP. So the first position was to refinance the property that I owned. My intention originally was to sell it, but given that my mindset had changed, I wanted to go from flipping properties to owning properties for the long term. So I refinanced that property. That's a 3-bedroomed terraced property in Kippax that I rent out, and I started to build my portfolio. So the first one after that was a 3-bedroom terraced house in Pontefract, which I converted into a 5-bed HMO property by converting one of the downstairs reception rooms into a bedroom, and by converting the attic room into another bedroom as well, which made it a 5-bed. So, and then I decided to buy several single-let properties as well. So over the last 12 months or so, I've managed to add the HMO property and another 6 single-lets to my portfolio. Again, JP's kindly financed all those through a couple of different lenders that we're working with at the moment. So in a very short space of time, over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, I've gone from having one property and only knowing one strategy, which was to buy and sell property, to now having a 9 property portfolio, total value somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2 million. Enough passive income to not have to work if I wanted to. I do still work because I love my job, but if I wanted to go into property full time, I would be able to have sufficient income in order to do that.
Good. So did you speak to any other brokers, and what were the fee structures like for them?
I did.
Did you actually go for JP?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I met JP at a networking event, but I did make contact with another broker, and it was the broker that was actually looking after the purchase of my new build home, which I mentioned completed in June 2019. So the broker that I used for that was a specialist new build broker, and when I spoke to him about commercial finance and wanting to build out a portfolio, it was apparent straight away that he didn't have the skill set or the knowledge to get commercial finance. His expertise were in new builds, not in commercial finance. When I met JP, it was very much different. JP has his own rental portfolio. He's helped landlords for a very long time, best part of 35 years. So he knows the intricacies of what's involved with getting commercial finance. He knows what lenders are looking for to get buy-to-let mortgages. So having someone like that in the team is invaluable, really.
That's good stuff. So what are your plans for 6 months? What do you intend to do with JP? Have you got any sort of developments on? What are your plans?
So as we speak at the moment, I've got a couple of light refurbishments going on, which I anticipate will take within a month. Hopefully, they'll be all completed. And then my intention is to refinance my own home, which only completed last year, but there's a bit of equity in there that I can utilise going forward. So my intention is to use JP to refinance that property, and using the released equity, the intention is to purchase at least 1, possibly 2 more properties by the end of this year, all being well.
That's good stuff. So would you recommend JP then?
Yes, absolutely. Already have. I recommended him to my partner's mum and dad. So I'm that confident that he'll deliver on service that I've recommended to the close family.
Nice one. So that's Luke's story. Thank you, Luke, for coming down.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in the next one.